started, so much you want to talk about. We're going to talk about active stories and how they raise moral issues and how they raise moral issues and things you can be discussing with your students. So, when we talk about modes of literature, the different kinds of literature there are. Now, there's many ways you could do this. You could talk about genres, fiction, poetry, drama, nonfiction, so on. You can talk about novels and different poetic forms. But I think especially in the classical tradition, the way people will look at the kinds of stories. Remember, we talked about every story has a plot, and characters, and the plot has a structure, and the key thing is the resolution, the ending. So how stories begin and how they end becomes very important. So we'll talk about tragedy, basically stories with an unhappy ending. Some of the greatest Greek literary creations are really the tragic mode. And we can speak about classical tragedy. Classical tragedy has special requirements, special qualities. We'll talk about medieval tragedy. In the Middle Ages, they had tragedy that is different than the classical tragedy. You could almost call this Christian tragedy, but for now, but I don't want to use that. That implies that Christians can't write the other kinds of tragedy or haven't often written those kinds. But the medieval approach to these different forms really shows a distinctly Christian worldview, appropriating them and taking them in a somewhat different direction. And we'll talk about comedy, about the definition of comedy. And again, there's classical comedy, and there's medieval comedy, or we could say Christian comedy. And then we'll talk about epic, which, again, a lot of classical literature curriculum are really built around these modes, and typically do a lot with epic. And I want us, I'll give some examples from epic of the different ways of the story can explore moral issues. So let's begin with classical tragedy. Now, Aristotle defines this in the greatest works of literary criticism in his Poetics. And he defines tragedy as a story that shows the downfall of a noble person because of a tragic flaw. Let's talk about this. A noble person. Okay. When the good guy gets killed at the end of the superhero movie, that's not tragic. Right? When the bad guy gets killed, we cheer. So Aristotle said the tragic hero, or really the protagonist, could not be someone who is totally bad, because then it can't be tragic. Then there's no, it's not a sad ending when it comes to the doom. It can't be someone though that's purely good either, because that just frustrates us when we see someone who's really good and innocent and they get killed. That's not tragic. That's just pathetic. That's just sad. It's not really what Aristotle was trying to get to, but the tragic. He said the tragic hero, or the tragic protagonist, is someone who is noble, who we're for, we identify with. We're all on that person's side, but the person brings the disaster upon himself or herself because of this tragic flaw. Now, here's where theologians, pastors, and people who know the classical languages can help. The word Aristotle used that's translated tragic flaw by literary critics, the word is hamartia. Hamartia. Okay, those who know New Testament Greek, hamartia, what's that word mean?
Sin. Or the missing of the mark.
Missing mark.
Sin. Okay, that's the New Testament word for sin. And so, a classical tragedy is about someone who's basically a good person, we might say, but there's some sin. And that sin brings on the disaster, brings on the downfall. Now, we don't use that very often. Just this morning, I read a paper, and one time I heard about the new Star Trek movie coming out, or it's out, I guess. We want to see it as soon as we can. But the actor that played Chekhov, he died. And the article about it, quoting one of the other actors, he died of an unspeakable tragedy. And so I guess his car, he was standing behind his car, closing the gate, and the car rolled back over him. There was a product recall on the car. He hadn't taken it in yet. And for somehow it didn't stay in gear, and it rolled over him and killed him. Now, for the Greek, I mean, that's such a terrible, sad thing. The Greeks would not call that tragic, though. Because if it's a real tragedy, the person brings it on himself through some hamartia. A few months ago, in Oklahoma, where we live now, there's a leader in the Oklahoma City community, and he built up from scratch the biggest oil company in the city. And he used his wealth and his success to really bring Oklahoma City back. Now Oklahoma City is a really happening place. He built Bricktown, and he was one of the owners of the Oklahoma City Thunder, and he did so much for the community and so well respected, and he did so much good, philanthropy, charities. But then he was indicted. The newspaper came out, front page headlines. He was indicted in his oil business. He did something that was illegal, and it's one of these very arcane business regulations that a lot of us think, well, that doesn't seem so bad. It was something about not rigging the bidding for oil leases, so it wasn't competitive. Or I think he colluded with some other oil companies. Okay, I'll bid on these leases, you can bid on those. And you're not supposed to do that, and it's illegal. So the paper came out, Aubrey is indicted, faced prison. That same day, he drove his SUV into a bridge embankment, and apparent suicide. He was so ashamed, apparently, that he took his own life. The very next day in the newspaper, on Monday, indictment, scandal. The next day, how much he has done for our community. Every section of the newspaper had something about sports. He brought NBA, the food section. He's the one that invested in all these restaurants that bring the food now you have all these great restaurants in Oklahoma City. You have business all praising him. And, you can certainly see the futility of the world's praises. The same newspaper that brought him down and praised him after he was dead. But I think that was, you can make a tragedy. His life was a tragedy. Because he did so much good, and yet he took this one shortcut, one illegal thing, and it brought him down. And the result is so sad. It fills us with, talk about the pity and fear. Now, in classical tragedy, certainly Greek tragedy, the downfall of a person because of a tragic flaw. What is likely hamartia of someone who's really great? What is the sin?
Pride.
Pride. And the Greek word for pride is hubris, which means exalting yourself above mortal men. And in the Greek view, you're competing with the gods, and the gods are going to strike you down. But pride, and that becomes the tragic flaw of so many characters here. This is from the play Oedipus Rex. He was going along a road. Someone else was coming the other way in a chariot. Stand out of my way. I stand out of the way of no one. And Oedipus would not step out of the road to let someone else pass because of his pride. And it turned into a fight. Oedipus killed the other guy. Turns out it was his father. He didn't know. He was separated from He killed his father, which led in the story to later marrying his mother. And I mean, horrors after horrors. But see, it came from his pride, his ego. Of course, the irony is he's just like his father. The father wouldn't move out of the way either. But because of that little incident, they didn't know, the significance at the time. It brought on these horrible things, and Oedipus blinds himself. And it's this incredible tragic ending. Again, King Lear. Which of you daughters loves me more than the other? The ego, wanting to get that back, and the daughters outdo themselves and start competing against each other. But because the one that loves him the most is going to get the biggest share of his kingdom when he retires. Yeah, that's a tragedy about retirement. He spends half the year with one daughter, half the year with the other daughter. Which is basically what Jackie and I are going to do with our daughter in Australia, in Oklahoma. I just hope we end up better than King Lear does. Anyway, it creates an audience, Aristotle says, a catharsis, an emotional cleansing. And you come to a big into this, so sad, it gives you that. But what the experience is, it's pity and fear. Pity. The Greeks Aristotle sort of thought pity and compassion were weaknesses, and you need to get these out of your system. And from the Christian point of view, though, the word for pity is compassion. The value of tragedies is that it creates compassion for this fictional character, right? The sad ending. You feel sorry for these characters, these people. And again, that's a very important moral emotion, isn't it? So we're to feel compassion. And this is one way literature can help, again, train and form us morally by creating vicarious experiences that can create in us, in the reader or the viewer, compassion. Compassion and fear. So fear is not a good emotion, but knowing this is kind of good for us sometimes. Fear lest we be in that situation. What is my pride? Am I the kind of person that doesn't like to back down? Or what's the consequences of that? Am I the kind of person who will fudge things to make things work out better for me? Again, pity and fear, but there's something cleansing. It's cathartic in the sense of it's a cleansing of emotion, pure emotion. Can you think of what's a tragedy? Is there a movie or a TV show or a novel that's what?
The Titanic.
The Titanic. Okay, it's sad.
Facing the crowd.
Okay. Titanic, beautiful love story. At the end, Leonardo DiCaprio character dies, and it's sad and poignant. Is that tragic? Would the Greeks consider that tragic?
Well, they were too prideful to think that.
What?
They were so prideful in thinking that it couldn't sink.
Oh, well, yes. Okay, good point. The manufacturers. Yes, this is a ship that not even God can sink. Ooh. That's hubris. You don't want to say that. Now, so you're right. So Titanic is a tragedy. It's in that sense. Is it Leonardo DiCaprio's fault that it sank? No. And so that part of the plot, it's sad, but it's not really tragic. Now, if he did cause it to sink, if because of their love, they were, making out in the engine room and they turned the thing another movie, I guess. but again, the death of the guy that played Chekhov is not tragic. But a driver who drives drunk and causes the accident and kills someone, that could be tragic for sure. Or the manufacturers who made the defective car, you can make a tragedy out of that. And again, it's not necessarily the people who are killed, it's the people who are often left standing that are the tragic heroes in classical tragedy. Yeah.
How about at least the novel Count of Monte Cristo?
Yeah, Count of Monte Cristo. But that kind of has that gets into another kind of form that we'll talk about. I think that has a happy ending because it's a redemptive ending. The Count of Monte Cristo.
Well, the movie has a happy ending. The book doesn't.
Oh, wow. Someone else had a comment. It's not tragic in that it's. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't remember the ending of the book exactly.
There was an old Twilight Zone with, I guess, Burgess Meredith, where he was fixated on reading everything. And that's all he wanted to do. And then there's a nuclear war, and he survives, and his glasses break, and that's all it is.
Notice we're laughing. It kind of makes that kind of a comedy too.
Because it was so cool. Like whoever wrote the script, I was just malevolent.
Exactly.
I was thinking of It's a Wonderful Life, not George Bailey, but the miser in it. I can't remember his name.
Oh,
Oh,
So greedy.
But again, it's
And
not
he has a chance
fathers.
to do the right thing and chooses not to.
Yeah.
The story of Genghis Khan where he's got his hawk and he's out and there's drips of water. He's trying to get the little drips of water to drink. The hawk keeps knocking it out of his hand. Eventually he gets so angry, kills the hawk, and then he finds out that there's a poisonous snake up in the water. The hawk had been saving his life.
A lot of, and of course, irony like that is a big part of classical tragedy, where they don't really realize what they're doing, and yet it has these horrible, these terrible consequences. Yeah. Let's go to that. Medieval tragedy. When we come back to these a little bit more, did you have a?
Oh, I was going to say the myth of Actaeon.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering, are the contemporary, and I'm thinking that most
Breaking Bad.
sad stories, Breaking Bad, that would, because he does it because of his own choices. He becomes a drug dealer and gets deeper and deeper into things.
I think Godfather Part 2 might count as a tragedy. In order, what he cares about is his family. And he ends, by the end of the movie, he's lost every member of his family. And he even asks his mother in the middle, Mama, si tu perdo la familia, can you lose your family? Of course, being this nice Italian, oh no, figlio mio, non si può perdere la famiglia. And in the end, he's all by himself. He's killed his brother, his wife has left him. He's successful in every worldly way. But he's lost his family.
Yeah. You see, that's tragic. That is real tragic. I think the key is that the person has responsibility for the terrible plight that he or she gets into. Okay, I'm going to briefly mention that medieval tragedy is simpler. And maybe a lot of our tragedies just have a sad ending and the athlete gets cancer, dies at the end, and again, it's not his fault. But in the medieval definition, it's just basically a story that begins in joy but ends in pain, and it's the distance that they go from joy to pain, that ending that defines a tragedy. An example would be the King Arthur story, taken as a whole, begins with Sword in the Stone, Camelot, wonderful, joyous adventures, doing good, but it ends because of the adultery of Lancelot and Guinevere. It ends with civil war. It ends with the Knights of the Round Table killing each other. It ends finally with the death of Arthur. And at the end, when you read Mallory's literature, Lancelot and Guinevere are together. And, now they can fulfill their love. Now there are no obstacles. That's the sappy. That's the false. But how they really act is they see the devastation that adultery has caused. And they're lamenting it. And Guinevere becomes a nun, and Lancelot becomes a monk. And you see in the saga of King Arthur going from this glorious, wonderful height to devastation and renunciation. Okay, I'm going to talk some more about that. Let's talk about comedy. Now, for the classical view of comedy is a very moral form. And the purpose of comedy is to ridicule vice, to take bad behavior and make fun of it, and to mock it, and to just see how stupid it is. And the idea is, if you ridicule bad behavior, if you learn to scorn it, then you won't want to do it. You see how stupid something is. It says, no one wants to be laughed at for the things that we do. And so, if you can take, say, adultery, there are different treatments of adultery. Now, the thing is, classical comedy is full of vice. It's full of adultery and drunkenness and bad behavior and betrayals. But the idea is comedy makes the viewer not want to do these things. You don't want to imitate bad behavior in comedy by just pouring scorn and mockery and laughter, scornful laughter. It makes you, it has a very moral effect because you don't want to be that way. So again, it would show adultery and have characters committing adultery, sneaking around and doing all of these things. But then you see how foolish, how stupid, how contemptible that behavior is. Yeah, so it's sort of ridicules vice. Today, again, we have comedy that ridicules virtue. It makes fun of people who are chaste, who don't cheat on their family, ridiculing marriage, ridiculing good behavior. And again, the Greeks and Romans, that's completely out of line. That's not really comedy. But a lot of comedy does ridicule bad things. In satire, it's been said that you can't have satire without moral absolutes. Certainly the greatest satirist would be Jonathan Swift, who was a conservative, politically conservative clergyman in the Church of England. These devastating, somewhat kind of vulgar satires, basically about enlightenment thought, about humanism. Human beings who think they're so great, but are really little Lilliputians who are standing around, these little tiny little people, and with their titles. I am king of the whole universe, and you must obey me. And it's hilarious. And then he makes people that are so big. Anyway, it's devastatingly funny. That is a very strong moral and even philosophical edge to it. Satire today, I mean, maybe you think of the liberals and conservative. We have satirists who make fun of the government and politics and the contemporary society, and conservatives and then liberals. They're using humor really to make very serious points, and they're using humor. I think sometimes the left does it more effectively, and it's true. If they can be conservative or Christians, you have to do mockery. People don't, and that's what they're doing. People don't want to be that kind of person. All those beliefs. And then they're conservative, humorists and satirists who work the other way. But look at comedy. Look at the moral center of comedy. What is being centered? Where are the absolutes in here? No, it's law. It's going to be very merciless. But comedy is a sort of ridiculous vice. Classical comedy. Now, medieval comedy is the opposite of tragedy. It sort of begins in pain, but ends in joy. Of course, the best example of that is Dante's Divine Comedy. It begins in hell, and it goes up the mountains of purgatory, and it ends in heaven. It ends in paradise. Dante's such a good poet. unbelievably good poet that a lot of people read the Inferno, because that's the exciting part. That's all the horrible things. But you can't understand it. You have to get all the way to the paradise. Otherwise, you won't know it's a comedy. I mean, medieval comedy doesn't have to be funny. It doesn't have to create laughter. That's classical comedy. But it's structural. It begins in pain and ends in joy. Okay, which is life? Is life a comedy or a tragedy?
You have to have faith.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have faith.
Okay. It can be either. For some, from a Christian point of view, life is tragic. For a Christian, yes, this life has pain. This life has trouble, trials, and tribulation. But we have a happy ending awaiting us. Or let's end in joy. Which gives us a different perspective. You have that faith, that hope, that love. It gives perspective, even on the trials and tribulations that we have. If you think life is a comedy, then you won't take yourself so seriously. You see how ridiculous you are. And even the things that happen, it doesn't minimize the suffering. But to know that the suffering is not ultimate. It is going to be swallowed up in joy. Though, it is possible for those who want all their pleasures right now. Because the problem is, it doesn't, because reality isn't, reality is according to, the Christians have to understand reality. You expect everything to be good now. But it isn't. So, oh, how terrible life is. And again, many people today believe that this life is just, okay, you grow, you're young, you have to get all of your pleasure now, because when you get old, you get sick, and then you die, and then you rot, and there's nothing beyond that. So you have to have any pleasure, any joy right now. And when it isn't. And again, they have a tragic sense of life. It's not just some other literature, it's a sense of life. Life is a tragedy. So look at the darkness in most popular songs, most popular movies even, or many of them, most popular fiction, most contemporary art. It's a darkness because it's a sense of tragedy. That their worldview is tragic. The Greeks had a tragic sense of life. They believed that when you die, everybody goes to hell. Everybody goes to Hades. Okay. If you're really bad, you're going to be tormented, and if you were good, but you're still, you just sort of float around in a dark, depressing, shadow-like existence, but you're still in Hades. And so all of your glory has to be now, in this world. And this is where we have it from George's talk about different views of immortality. Yes, so glory. You have to get glory now by fame. And you look at Achilles and others who had to have fame. That's how your name would be remembered, not in the shadow lands of Hades. And that was why they're so good at Greeks are so good at tragedy.
Came naturally.
But Christianity, I think, has a comic sense of life. A comic. The greatest literary figure produces really Shakespeare, and part of his genius was to combine medieval elements with the classical elements. And he created something new and amazing. Shakespeare's comedies usually begin with a death sentence. Okay. Midsummer Night's Dream. If you don't marry the person that I tell you to, the fathers say, I invoke the law that you must die. Over and over. And death sentence, families against families, fathers against children, children against fathers. Horrible situations. The community coming undone. The wrong person is leading, brother overthrowing brother to become the king, and condemning the other brother to death. That's how they begin. And then they work out, usually by going through this marvelous, into a forest or an island or over the sea, where strange transformations happen. And at the end, they end in forgiveness. They end in marriage. Usually people married are the ones who are fighting through most of the play, but they become reconciled. It ends in reconciliation, marriage, love, very specifically forgiveness and pardon. Did you see how Christian that is? People say, well, Shakespeare, he does talk about Jesus. Well, it's the very structure of his plays, especially his comedies, that really image the gospel. Okay? Really image at least a Christian comic sense of life. So again, watch for those. Watch for these bigger worldview issues within comedy and tragedy. And again, the Christian worldview does include tragedy because people can be damned. And it's said that a lot of medieval tragedy is actually dramas of damnation. Macbeth, good example. It isn't just that he's flawed in the symbols. He has one. It shows a man who has everything going for him, who gradually turns himself into a monster. And at the end, what he experiences is stagnation, along with nihilism and despair. Yeah.
I think that another difference between the classical and medieval tragedies is that the classical really focuses on not only the tragic flaw, but it tends to be tied up with fate. So you can't really help it. Oedipus, it's sort of portrayed that he had no control really over this.
No, that's yeah.
And so, with Shakespeare especially, it's never inevitable.
Yeah, it's not
It's always
in that sense. Yeah,
it's much more sin-oriented.
a lot of the classical you're right. The classical worldview, the Greek pagan worldview, has this kind of humanism, but it's also countered by this faith, and the faith is always bad. And so there's a lot of irony, that the tension, even in Oedipus, it is simply faded. Oh, I didn't mean to do any of this. Oh, God. But at the same time, it's his own choices that are doing it. His own choices bring about the faith that he's trying to reject. Of course, his real hubris at the beginning is the prophecy comes, you're going to kill your father and marry your mother. That's what the gods say. He says, no, I'm not. I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to leave. By which he makes it happen. If he'd have stayed, none of it would have happened, and I guess it would have been. Anyway, yeah, they do a lot of playing with those paradoxes. In Shakespeare, instead of faith, there's the idea of providence, which comes from the word for provide. God provides. And in Hamlet, that's how Hamlet is resolved. It's a tragedy, but it's through God's providence that justice takes place. Justice as opposed to revenge. He drops the sword and they pick up the wrong sword. Hamlet talks about providence in the special providence in the fall of a sparrow. When he goes out into the sea, he comes back transformed. Now, usually that's in the comedies. Here it's in the tragedies. And he's no longer talks about revenge and planning all these big schemes. He says the readiness is all. There's special providence in the fall of a sparrow. And just be ready. And just let things happen. And sure enough, it's by these accidents that the justice takes place. Anyway, there's so much you can get into with these great stories. Let's go on to just some examples from the epic, from the Odyssey. Classical curriculum really did a lot with Homer. And when the Christians took it over, they took over the curriculum, and they took over Homer too. And they looked at Homer and found so many moral examples that they use in teaching morals as well as everything else. I just want to look at some of these episodes to show how these very fanciful stories, what they're doing. Again, the Odyssey of Odysseus. After the Trojan War's over, they're going home. Yeah, it's a great victory. Odysseus' idea, the Trojan horse, the victory. But then getting home, they have many problems along the way. One of the first things that happen, they come to an island, the land of the Lotus Eaters. And the Lotus Eaters, they're so nice to them. The people come here, come, stay with us here, eat this lotus. It will really make you happy. And they give them this herb of the lotus. And so then they eat it. And they just want to say, what does that remind you of? Lotus Eaters. Well, yeah. It reminds me of the 60s. The whole, I mean, what's wrong with drugs? I mean, there's no commandments against taking opium or drugs, or those of you in Colorado legalized the lotus blossom. Yeah.
It robs us of our humanity and our ability to reason.
It's exactly what Homer says. There's a warning. If you eat the lotus, you will forget your desire for home. You're trying to get home to their families and responsibility. If you eat the lotus, you're going to forget about that. You're going to forget about your home, about your responsibilities, about your humanness. And Homer makes that very explicit. Odysseus sees his men eating the lotus, and he's driving. He has to drive them back to the ships. And he tells them, says, "You are Greeks. You're Greeks. Don't eat the lotus. You're a human being. You're capable of great things. Don't just lie here, stoned out of your mind with the flower children." And you can apply that to a lot of different things, right? Different kinds of lotuses. I suppose video games can be kind of the same way. You're a human being. You can do things. You've got things, great things that you can accomplish. and above all, you try to get home. Of course, the early church allegorize that. The effort to get home is tied into our pilgrimage, our journey through life to get to our real home, which is heaven. And all these things that can distract us from that, so many of them are kind of allegorized here. Just quickly, the sirens. Another time they were going through, and again, at least in this, it's warnings. Because you're going to go to a place and you're going to see these beautiful women singing this most beautiful, achingly beautiful music. It will fill you with such longing and desire that you're going to want to go to. Move steer your ship to the island, whereupon you will hit the reefs and the rocks, and your ship will be destroyed and you'll all die. Again, things that appear so attractive, so beautiful, so desirable, and yet they can make shipwreck of our lives, right? It's a very important point of prudence, as well as everything else, to understand that attractive appearances, things that superficially seem good, can destroy your life. Okay. The other part of the story in Homer is Odysseus, wily Odysseus, and his superpower is he's really very smart. He's very intelligent. He said, okay, but I've got to hear this. This is so good, I've got to hear the song of the siren. So he arranges it. He tells us, okay, I'm going to put wax in all of your ears so you won't hear any of it. Just keep rowing the ship, and we'll go through and get past this. But tie me to the mast. I want to hear this. Tie me. And if I signal to you or something to untie me, put more ropes on me. And don't do what I say. Don't follow my orders to release me. So they tie him to the mast, and you see in that picture, he wants to experience it. He's prudent enough to try to prevent himself physically from falling into it. Again, some of us are like that too. You want to experience the other side. He makes it. Sure enough, he goes through and the song of the siren, and he says, "Oh, yeah, let me go, man. Okay, forget what I said. New orders." Again, they put more ropes on him, and he comes through it. Again, that's such a universal situation, isn't it? And you don't have to have literal, magical beings to understand about the siren song. And you have to learn to resist it. And if you are in a situation that could lead to sin, prevent yourself from being able to indulge in it. Put the computer in a public place if you're tempted by, internet pornographic sirens to prevent you from succumbing to what you would. Anyway, just these little stories become examples that open up all kinds of very important discussions. Okay, this one, the Cyclops, this is prudence, where a smart person can defeat somebody who's a lot more powerful, who's big and powerful, but so stupid that he's easily outwitted. About out of time. Let me jump on to this one. Scylla and Charybdis. Odysseus gets to a point and says, okay, you have to sail by this place, and there are two monsters. One is Scylla, a 9-headed monster that will eat at least 9 of your men as you sail by. And don't try to kill him because it can't be killed. So that's one choice. Or there's another monster, Charybdis, who's this monster sucking the water down, creating this terrible whirlpool that will, destroy your ship. You gotta go by one or the other. Take your choice. Okay, bye. So when you choose two options that both of them are bad. I don't know how Homer knew about the 2016 presidential election. I keep thinking of this. I'll take the lesser of two evils. I'll lose 9 men. That would be better than probably losing everybody. So he goes by Scylla, and Scylla eats 9 men. He gets through. Just later on, something happens. Storm happens. His ship is drawn back into Charybdis. He ends up, both of the bad things happen. Notice we may elect one candidate president, and it may be such a debacle that in 4 years or 8 years, the other one will get elected, and we'll have 8 years of the other one too. As our country may be facing both the Scylla and Charybdis. But that's the human condition. And even Homer, has figured out a way around that. But again, these stories can provoke such good discussions of so many different things, so many applications. And although the stories are just little fantasies, all the stories, notice how they preserve so much of human experience and have their way to kind of convey that experience and internalize it. Okay, this is what I'm doing now, telling stories to my grandkids. And it's interesting to see how that plays out with them. And if we had time, I would tell you about the stories I'm making up to try to correct some of their bad habits. And how that sometimes futile effort, but sometimes successful effort. The way it works, I'm finding, is to help them. I make them sort of the heroes of their own story, and they're the ones that are modeling the opposite virtue, the virtue opposite to the vice that we're working on, like being mean to your sister, or being messy, or having a bad attitude, and whatever. And so, by the way the child identifies with a certain protagonist, it's a way that they're learning about how to live, at least in the first table of the law. All right, well, thank you very much for